Gankers, the lowest of the low, filth wrought from iron dross, corrupted by their collective shame. Or perhaps, might they be noble, champion protectors against the vile scourge of the Red Menace? Let us begin. Ganking, as used in reference to the Souls series, is a strategy wherein the mechanically hunted player uses allies in extreme preparedness to become a hunter, willfully luring would-be killers into a sudden, shallow grave. Speaking plainly, the host gets a couple buddies and they pancake an invader like a drunk dump truck driver. On the surface, you might have a strong reaction to the idea, especially if you've experienced a gank yourself. As an invader, it is a dirty thing, a way to ensure you are taken to task for participating in an intended mechanic. As a host or cooperator, it is a thing of justice, a way to turn the tables on an aggressor. But how much of that is an excuse? How valid are these viewpoints? Let's focus on invaders. As an invader, you push your way into another's world to obstruct them. Your methods and efficiencies are largely up to you, but your goal is simple: kill the host. But you have no way to validate the quality of that host, for better or worse. You may encounter an extremely unprepared host who has just lost their cooperator to incompetence and their death is all but guaranteed. Or you may encounter a host who is at the farthest edge of the matchmaking range, with allies far beyond that, who have cleared the level of all other threats and have been waiting for you. I am of the opinion that in its most basic form, you should understand and accept that risk when you invade. You make an active choice to attack, and you cannot demand that choice be met with a certain quality or consistency beyond what the game facilitates. And the game facilitates ganking, for better or worse. I am also of the opinion that ganking is exploitative of the game's mechanics, and there's no real way to claim it's inherently good, or that it's even an intentional mechanic. I view ganking as a consequence of an underbaked implementation, the product of a system trying to balance the odds for the uninitiated, with no real concern for how it might be abused. But does that make gankers wrong? Or are they just responding to some perceived injustice done through exploitative means unto them? For the sake of argument, put yourself into the mind of a ganker. You spent dozens of hours trying to play through the game with your friends in jolly cooperation, using your collective might to bring a glimmer of comfort or ease to the harsh landscape. But at every turn you were met by the mean red man. He came into your house and he killed you dead. He even mocked your corpse. And he does this over and over and over, until you are defiled beyond recognition. But despite this, eventually, you made it through. Now, you have power. Your friends have power. The mean red man's time has come. You summon your allies and truss yourselves in the finest instruments of torture. Dragon breath to cover the map, moon veils to punish the heel, and spells to spam to your heart's content. For good measure, you clear the level of every single enemy. Now, you wait. Before long, the mean red man appears, but this time, the advantage is yours. You set upon him with deadly precision, knowing for certain he cannot withstand your combined barrage. He dies in moments and you disgrace his corpse. Your team cheers in glee, thrilled beyond reason. As the light leaves his eyes, your minds converge to a single thought: more. You draw your taunter's tongue and chum the waters, waiting with bated breath for the stupid, stupid sharks. One by one they fall. Some try their best, others submit quickly, but all of them die. And should any of them get the better of you, you can always summon another ally, or even disconnect to avoid technical defeat. In the worst case, if by some miracle they manage to kill you, despite overwhelming odds, you can always try again. Depending on which side you sit, this probably sounds like either heaven or hell. For my money, it can be either. I want to express myself as someone who has both ganked and been ganked. My ganking journey began and ended with Dark Souls 3. I played previous entries mostly alone, only taking advantage of the multiplayer I found throughout at random, or occasionally with a friend. I had a very strong sense of anticipation and dread around being invaded, generally assuming I would die when invaded, and pleasantly surprised when I survived. But a few months into Dark Souls 3 release, I was well on the path of PvP. The only problem was, I was bad at it. I had invaded in previous games, mostly as a blue, but my victories were 50-50 at best, and that was assuming a 1v1. Invading in Dark Souls 3 was something I desperately wanted to get better at, but I couldn't grasp the meta-level combat. Damage was high, passive poise was removed, and gank squads were everywhere. I felt it was a lost cause. But a chance encounter with a powerful low-level invader, a twink, made me realize there was an entirely separate bracket to PvP, that I didn't need to be high-level to fight, and that I didn't need to invade. I could prepare myself for these powerful low-level invaders with my own low-level build, and leverage my host advantage to compensate for my lower skill and fewer efficiencies. In short, I could gank. Now, at the time, I did not realize just how substantial my advantage was, particularly because I was still regularly losing. I was considerably worse at PvP than the typical invader, and I disliked making builds that followed what I considered a cheesy strategy. Anything that would give me an edge at the cost of RP or fashion wasn't in the cards. A quick side note for those of you who never experienced Dark Souls 3 low-level invasions, there was essentially one build that dominated every other. This build could be made at level 1 and utilized one weapon in particular, the Dragon Slayer's Axe. A weapon that benefited greatly from the raw infusion, which removed scaling and the need for higher levels. It also had innate lightning damage, which required high endurance, thus a higher character level, to gain defense against. It could even be further buffed with a powerful flat lightning damage bonus increase using an item without level requirements, which had disproportionately powerful effects at lower levels. These builds could also use the Dark Hand, a fist weapon that had no level requirements and very high base damage due to the fact that it could not be upgraded. Couple those weapons with heavy armor, any parrying offhand, and a ring that increased riposte damage by 30%, and any novice with access to YouTube can make a Terminator that could march on the high wall with impunity. I'll talk more about twinks in a future video, but I specifically wanted to highlight these invaders as a catalyst for my ganking. For every invasion I won against some other build, I would lose to these nightmares. Their damage output was absurd, they threw shit when I died, and they were all the same. For the record, I love these builds and I miss them dearly. Part of that feeling is provoked by nostalgia for bygone power, part of it is my appreciation for min-maxing at low levels, and part of it is how I managed to challenge them. Though I didn't do it alone. I had friends who played Dark Souls 3. They would play through the PvE just like the other games, but only participate in the most casual multiplayer elements. Once I had found my rhythm battling invaders at the high wall, I encouraged them to join me. I convinced them the PvP didn't have to be all one-shots and straight swords, that at lower level, the stakes were a little lower and the combat a little slower. But it was the concept of organized team fighting that really captured them. I wasn't telling them to go it alone, I was inviting them along for the ride. To turn an isolating, lonely battle into a confident team match was a strong incentive. They agreed, and we began. We made builds centered around single weapons or themes, meeting the bare minimum requirements and using whatever we thought might be fun. For us, ganking was a way to shirk efficiency and embrace novelty. So when the Hyper Twinks came knocking, we used our gimmick builds and obscuring ring great bows to give them a little surprise. Instead of invading Knight Baby Boy and his sorcerer BF, they invaded Naruto Uzumaki and his 3 shadow clones. It was among the most entertaining things I've ever facilitated. And it worked. Our win rate skyrocketed as a unit, and we could spend hours at a time fighting 4v2, diverting the invasions from undeserving new players and towards our blender of justice. For me, this helped to make PvP the main game and everything else preparation. We would gank weekly, sometimes daily, using it as a way to induct people who were otherwise terrified of PvP and the series more broadly. It felt like we were doing something genuinely good, with the only victims the invaders who wanted nothing more than to spread misery. In my mind, we were the good guys. And while my view of invasions has changed a lot over the years, I just want to clarify that it felt justified. But I couldn't gank every day, and more specifically, I didn't want to. I started ganking as a way to learn PvP because I wanted to invade. I never believed invasions were all bad, only that there was a good way and a bad way to invade. And through ganking, I had gotten better at PvP. I didn't need to pick the best gear or use the meanest strategies. I could fight on my own terms. I was ready to take my skills to the streets. With everything I had learned about min-maxing low-level builds and what to expect from gankers, I was able to make short work of a lot of average teams. They were generally predictable, especially if I knew how to push my advantages. I didn't panic when things got rough, I knew when to fight and when to flee. Finally, I had entered the realm of competent PvP. And just as ganking had made me a better invader, invading made me a better ganker. It wasn't long before the high wall ceased to challenge me. My friends had advanced their skills, and I was perfectly capable of fighting off most invaders on my own. But we still wanted to gank. It was our main gaming activity as a group, so we took our business up a rung. The Crucifixion Woods. In the Crucifixion Woods, the rules were slightly different. Instead of being able to summon 3 allied phantoms, you could only summon 2, and instead of 2 invaders, there could be 3. 4v2 became 3v3. Adding further, the zone was guarded by the Watchdogs of Farron, Covenant invaders who were mechanically allied and summoned automatically. While not perfect, the odds had never been more even. It was in those woods that we made our mark. Our builds evolved from low health, big weapon goons to competent, stylized builds made to embrace styles of play that genuinely interested us. The relatively low level and pressure of 3 invaders made us optimize without compromise, and to this day, gave me the best gaming experience of my life. Every night became a contest of personal bests, seeing how long we could survive before the endless onslaught eventually wore us down. Anytime an ally died, seeing if 1 or 2 of us could hold off the enemy until we could call reinforcements. It was a fight without end, where victory was measured in distance, the only goal to survive. As I reminisce, I am reminded of the reason I am not still there, fighting to the end of days. Elden Ring. What Elden Ring did to ganking is, in no uncertain terms, the greatest tragedy I have ever experienced in gaming. For once, that is not hyperbole. I actually had my personal life devastated by the release of a new game. My friends do not gank in Elden Ring. I do not gank in Elden Ring. I only casually invade. But why? In short, the 4-player limit and the lack of invasion zones. Elden Ring made sure to exclude 2 small but incredibly involved mechanics, the impact of which is felt ever more to the day. Many players couldn't care less, particularly players who never cared for the PvP in the first place. But for anyone who loved what Dark Souls 3 brought to the series, or for anyone who could have been made to love it given the chance, Elden Ring has left a 6-man hole in their bloody, stupid hearts. Now obviously, you can still gank in Elden Ring. You can get 2 friends together and beat on invaders, but only 2 friends and only 1 invader at a time. This is the PvP equivalent of Halo 3 4v4 Slayer, where half the players got disconnected at the start of the match and 3 of them were on one team, except there's no respawns for the solo player. Stated simply, I hate Elden Ring ganking. Not because it's unsporting, not because it's lopsided, but because it's boring. Where is the fun in killing 1 invader, knowing they can't get help, knowing that the only way they win is by sheer determination or dumb luck? It's not impossible, but it's worthless to impose. Anytime I'm invaded while co-oping and we quickly run them down, I feel like a bully. It makes me want to either put down the game or go it all alone. I have nothing but respect for those who carry the invasion torch to this day against those who still bother to gank. And I have nothing but questions for anyone who still finds it fun. I am someone who genuinely understands its merits and wants it to return to its former glory, but as it stands I have to ask, why? Obliterating people with ease has an appeal, no doubt, but I can't imagine it doesn't get old. The only thing that makes sense to me is that there simply isn't an alternative. It's still the only game that even remotely facilitates this sort of PvP, and you can't invade as a team. So if you want to fight as a unit, and you have the common sense to not find 5-minute arena matches an acceptable alternative, then ganking 3v1 is all you have. I know some preach 2v2 as acceptable, but for me, it's just not the same. I have people I want to play with. I want bigger fights. I want combat where 1 death doesn't decide the battle. I wanted Elden Ring, the biggest Souls game, to have bigger fights, bigger ganks, to embrace the multiplayer so unique to the series that it became its own game for me and others like me. But alas, we have been so far abandoned, leaving ganking as an irritating shadow of its former self. So is ganking justified? To me, it only matters that it was fun. Is ganking fun? It used to be, both as a ganker and invader, but Elden Ring has taken that from us. And with the upcoming DLC, it doesn't seem like that's going to change. From Software doesn't seem to be interested in their own multiplayer, instead distracted by traversal and exploration. We, the PvP community, are likely to starve. I spoke to the balances and intricacies of ganking at its most potent, but I would like to end this video with a small tribute to what ganking could be at its most novel. I recruited some of those old friends and reenacted a version of what I consider my greatest ganking triumph. Thank you for watching.